I will fight the giant.
Fight him with the same spirit you bring into this room.
So I watched The House of David, and I'd like to give my thoughts on it. Largely positive, but I do have a bit of a concern with the show, and it might not be what you think. So this is my first time doing any kind of TV or movie review. I don't know if this is something I'll do regularly. Probably almost certainly when the Chronicles of Narnia hit Netflix. I'm already concerned that they're throwing out Aslan as a male and replacing him with a female. Welcome to 2025, I guess, or 2018 probably, I think. I don't know. But I'm going to just kind of give my take on The House of David. So I do enjoy television and movies. I'll be honest with you, I don't watch a lot of the kind of Christian-made television and movies. So I haven't really watched The Chosen. Maybe I should after this. I might watch The Chosen, actually, and have a look at that. And some other things that come out. I guess these things are really popular in the United States, a bit less so in the UK. But anyway, going to The House of David. So here's my initial thoughts. I'll start with the positive. It was definitely watchable. I would say my big barometer of a show or a movie is, am I bored? Was I entertained? Did I enjoy watching it? Which is why, by and large, I like most of what The Rock does in terms of movies, because most of them are entertaining, even if I've forgotten almost every movie he's ever done about 10 minutes after I've watched it. So another thing that I enjoyed about The House of David was I think it was shot really well. I think the actors were good. I kind of got vibes of Bible meets Middle Earth, just kind of this Lord of the Rings feel to it, which I actually enjoyed. So I wasn't put off like some people may have been on the internet by maybe some liberal interpretation, I guess you could say, of filling in some backstory and some viewpoints and different things like that. I thought, well, I was okay by and large with some of those things and adding kind of that element to it, because they do say up front on the very first screen that you see when you watch The House of David that this is not an accurate representation of biblical events, but there's some artistic license gone there as well. So that's okay. I'm all right with that. But it still is acknowledging God and bringing in Bible stories from old that they reference and some of the Psalms and things like that. That's really good. That's really encouraging. When it comes to the cast, there's some particular highlights for me. I thought the guy that plays King Saul was a good actor, really brought kind of a three-dimensional aspect to Saul. There were some moments there where he's interacting with David or his family. You say, this is a guy that has a love for his family and actually has some, you would say, maybe some goodness about him, but obviously he's also a guy that's very protective of the throne. He's got some pride and some arrogance, wanting to kind of stand in a place that he shouldn't be. And from that point of view, they really added three dimensions to him, which I think is important, because in the Bible story, you see that David definitely has a love for Saul. And so if Saul is this entirely evil character, there probably wouldn't be anything for David to connect with, even in the real sense of David and Saul, the actual figures. So I'm glad they're showing that in the show as well. I thought the take on Michael was really interesting. Obviously, when I think of Michael from a biblical sense, you always think of how she is kind of one who gets really annoyed when David's dancing and he's kind of dancing in his loincloth. And she's, oh, this king's being undignified today. And obviously, inspired a Matt Redman song, I'll become even more undignified in this. If you remember that from the 90s, great times. They don't write songs like that anymore. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe not. Anyway, so I thought Michael was a really interesting take. It was a character you thought, this is a good character. You warm into this character, even though you know at some point you're going to be like, oh, I don't know, she's so good, at least in the biblical story. So I thought that was really good. And then another highlight in terms of characters was the character Jonathan. Now, I love the way they presented Jonathan. Jonathan, to me, was the stand-up guy in the whole series. He was somebody that was faithful to the Lord. He had kind of like this integrity and righteousness to him. And he's also somebody that you would say, you looked at Jonathan, this is a noble guy. This is the guy that should be the king. This is the guy that should be on the throne. And this lies with the problem that I had with the House of David, actually, if I'm being honest, was David himself. Starting with how they portray David, obviously artistic license. You see David running towards Goliath, very first scene, and he gets knocked down, I guess, so he can get up again. They're never going to keep him down, are they? Kind of know, is this is either a dream sequence or kind of like a faux, he's knocked down, but he's definitely not dead or unconscious or anything. He's going to get up. You kind of can see that come in because we've read the book, right? We've read the story, so we know what's going to happen. With David, what I felt was, he wasn't in the show a ton. It felt like sometimes there was large absences of David, which made it hard to connect with David. And I don't know if they were kind of going for this idea that David is an outcast and he's hidden, and he's going to kind of emerge. And so maybe even as the show is developing, it starts with a focus on Saul and the house of Saul and is swinging around to a focus on David. So he's kind of emerging as a person. But what it meant for me was when you got to the end, I didn't feel like I'd really connected with David. I didn't feel like I really believed in David. And also, I would say some of the things they portrayed about David really bothered me as well. So a couple of things was, one, he seemed a bit respectful to his dad. You know, not a good thing to do in the Old Testament. Some very severe consequences for that. But this is a guy that you're thinking, he's after God's heart. So can you show me that there's something noble and integrous about this guy, even though maybe he's pushed away from his family and he's kind of hidden away? I wanted to see that about him, because you really want to root for David. I think all of us, whether you're Jewish, if you're a Christian, maybe even if you're not a Christian and you've grown up with some of these Bible stories as part of your background, there's something about David that you feel like you own. So you're rooting for him. You want this guy to be the guy that you envision when you read the scriptures or you hear the stories. And I didn't feel like I got that from David. I think the other thing about David that really bugged me was he kind of had this millennial thing about him of, I've just got to figure out my destiny and who I am, and I don't know who I am, who am I supposed to be, and I'm in this teenage angst. And I'm thinking, I don't know if back then they had the same kind of approach to teenage angst and figuring out who they are, and I've got to find myself. Nah. To me, it would have been better to see him as somebody that is content in the Lord and is driven into relationship and intimacy with Jesus because of his circumstances. Whilst also there probably is something that says, why can't I be with the sons when Gandalf comes to my house? I mean, sorry, not Gandalf. I mean, Samuel. He did look like Gandalf, though, let's be fair. Those kind of things I think would have been okay, but there was such an emphasis on, I've got to know who I am. At the end, rise, David, rise. And to me, it was kind of focused on him rather than kind of through him to God, which I would have liked to have seen. May did that to try and connect more widely with an audience. Fair enough, they're making creative decisions. It's easy for me to judge. I just sit at home watching a TV show and be like, I like that, don't like that. So I'm not making those decisions, but that's just my thoughts on it regards to David. And also I thought maybe and I know that the theory, is conceived in iniquity, and therefore, maybe David was conceived out of wedlock. It's a school of thought around David. Whether it's true or not, we don't know, but they really kind of pushed into that. There's also a school of thought that David was a redhead, looked different. I don't know where I heard that. I heard this somebody preaching one time. They said David was probably like unique amongst Jewish people because he had red hair, and that's what ruddy means. I don't know. Honestly, if somebody knows there's a source for that, tell me in the comments, because I don't know if that's true. But I just picture this Scottish David, hey, you come at me with sword and spear, and I come at you with the name of the Lord. I'd love to have seen that, but maybe on a comedy version, not on a serious kind of Middle-earth meets Bible version. So I guess they're trying to really show why he might have been different from his brothers, and that's why they used that kind of storytelling device. Although I do wonder if there could have been an alternative route to that. What I will say, though, I did like the kind of coming together of Jesse and David at the end, where Jesse actually reveals that he believes in him. I thought that was redemptive. Anything between fathers and sons at the moment, I got 2 boys, just kind of makes me begin to weep. That's my thought. By and large, enjoyed it, watched it, looking forward to season 2. I'm hoping I'll be able to connect better with David in season 2. I do wonder, though, because he does look kind of young, as David progresses older, are they going to do a crown type thing where you switch out actors as the ages go on, or they're going to just try and age the current actor. It'll be interesting to see what they do there. But at the moment, struggling to connect with him, but I'm going to push on because actually I think what surrounds David, the extra characters, some of the storytelling, cinematography, and also just their ability to create interest and drama, even though you know the story. I thought they did that well. I'll watch it. In the meantime, if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. Even if you don't want to, subscribe to the channel because it helps it out. Let me know in the comments if you do want to see me do some reviews of Christian content. Maybe I'll check some more out after this. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.